Welcome to EWTN's continuing live coverage of the Synod of the Bishops on the Family. Today begins week 3, the last week of this Synod that has brought together over 300 participants from all over the world to reflect on the vocation and mission of the family in the church and in the contemporary world. To highlight the holiness we can achieve through marriage and family life, Pope Francis canonized a married couple on Sunday, Louis and Zélie Martin, the parents of Saint Thérèse of Lisieux. In his homily, the Holy Father praised their lives of Christian service. Let's listen.
I santi coniugi.
The holy spouses Louis Martin and Marie-Zélie Guérin practiced Christian service in the family, creating day by day an environment of faith and love which nurtured the vocations of their daughters. The radiant witness of these new saints inspires us to preserve in joyful service to our brothers and sisters, trusting the help of God and the maternal protection of Mary. From heaven may they now watch over us and sustain us by their powerful intercession.
Week 3 of the Synod kicked off this morning with participants meeting in their discussion groups. They will be working today and tomorrow to finish their proposals that will be handed into the commission drafting the Synod's final report. The good news is that means they will have Wednesday off as the commission finishes the final document that will be voted on by the Synod Fathers before being given to Pope Francis. At today's press conference, 3 Synod Fathers were there to answer our questions. Italian Bishop Enrico Solmi of Parma here in Italy, Australian Archbishop Mark Coleridge of Brisbane, who was our guest on the show a few evenings ago, and His Beatitude Fuad Tual, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem. Here's Archbishop Coleridge on whether or not he thinks the Synod will reach a consensus on many of the pressing issues they are discussing.
Pope Francis has moved the Synod from event to process from late 2013 up until this very day. So it is a messy process. It's had its challenges, it's had its moments of confusion, but I think there is a confidence deep down that something can emerge from the process of fermentation. I don't think we're ever going to get consensus on some of these hot button issues, but was that ever a realistic possibility? I doubt it. What really worries me as a pastor is that a lot of these people don't come to me or the church. They are seriously alienated and feel seriously excluded. So the question is not what do we do when they come to us, but how can I or we go to them and begin that process of dialogue that starts with a kind of listening.
The Archbishop spoke about 3 hot-button issues from last week: communion for divorced and remarrieds, same-sex couples, and cohabitation. Let's listen.
The indications are that there will be no substantial change of church teaching on those 3 issues that you mentioned. And I say this simply on the basis of the most recent, I've got no crystal ball, but on the basis of the discussions that we had in the small group this morning and on Friday afternoon, there is no groundswell of support for the change of church teaching. So my expectation, whatever about my hope, is that the teaching of the church in these areas will remain intact. If we can't admit them to communion, that's the all, then we can't do anything with them. Now, my sense is that between all or nothing, there's this vast territory that calls us to a new kind of pastoral creativity.
Now, not all Synod Fathers can make it here to the set to be with us, so we're grateful when they can make the time for us outside of Synod hours. I had the chance to sit down with Archbishop Chaput of Philadelphia, who explained his role in the Synod, the discussions in the small study circles, and the truth of faith in the family. Here's our interview. Your Excellency, thank you so much for being with us on the program today.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be with you.
I know you were very busy inside the Synod Hall, over 270 Synod Fathers here from all over the world, and not a lot of time to give interviews, so we're very thankful.
Well, in addition to the regular work of most bishops, I was elected to be a reporter, which is a kind of a combination of secretary and spokesperson for one of the English-speaking groups. There's 4 English-speaking groups. I am the spokesperson for Group D, the 4th one. Right. We're 21 bishops from 18 countries in this group.
All English-speaking?
All English-speaking, okay. From Africa, Asia, Europe, United States. We don't have anybody in our groups in South America. We have people from Oceania. So it's really a very, very diverse group.
Yes, and I think it's been a wonderful experience. So many Synod Fathers, I guess, have said it's this spirit of collegiality or this global church, Catholic. Catholic means universal, and
Right.
getting to sit next to, has that been your experience? Just a wonderful.
It is, and you know, I've met bishops I've never met before. I heard about some of them before coming here, and it's always a joy to meet them personally, and also to hear their reflections about the church and how the church is either growing in their country or struggling. One of the points of encouragement is that the bishops from Africa all have very positive things to say about the growth of the church and the embrace of the traditional Catholic understanding of family and marriage on behalf of their people in cultures that sometimes have been polygamous and have gone in other directions. So there's a lot of very encouraging things going on in the Synod, as well as the difficult things that people read about in the newspapers.
We do read a lot about it, different things. Well, I think one of the things that has emerged is the document that you work with. It was called the Instrumentum Laboris, which we've explained several times. Just means the working document of the Synod. That's something you discuss in your small discussion groups, and you have to analyze that. And it's meant to be taken apart, I guess, right? You know, and studied and improved upon. How has your experience been working with that document?
What the document is a combination of what was said last year at the Synod, plus new material that the bishops sent in, reflecting on what was said last year. So it really is not an effort to write a document with a clear theme and message from beginning to end. It's a compilation of what bishops said. So when we work on it, it's basically agreeing or disagreeing with what's there. It's impossible for us in 3 weeks to do a good editorial cleanup of this document or whatever. In the end, we're just going to vote on what has been said there and give our own opinions about what should be said.
And the Holy Father could or could not release the final document. I guess it's useless to speculate on will he, won't he. I think that question nobody knows, and not even the Synod Fathers. That makes us feel better as reporters if you guys don't know and we don't know.
I think the Holy Father hasn't decided yet whether he wants to do a document yet. It probably depends on the result of next week. So he can't commit himself to doing something he doesn't know if he wants to do it or not yet. So I wouldn't worry about that. I think we ought to just see what happens.
What have been some of the more difficult things, the work itself? What has been difficult in the work that you're trying to carry out over the past 2 weeks and the one to come?
Well, the most difficult part is taking the document that's been given to us and spending hours reflecting on it together in these small groups and trying to say things more clearly or even sometimes understand what the document's saying. We have an English translation of the original Italian, which is the official document, the Italian version. And those who know Italian say our translation's not very good. So we even spent a lot of time talking about what does this really mean, because we don't have a clear translation. So that's been very frustrating. If you've ever tried to edit a piece of work done by a committee, but to edit it as a committee, you can see the complication of this. We have, like I said, 21 bishops responding to what other bishops said and trying to make it clear or rewrite it. And that's been very difficult to do.
Maybe you can illuminate me a little bit on the voting. It's my understanding that when you go to vote on the final document, everyone will. It's Synod Fathers. And it will be simultaneously translated in your ear, and you have to vote right then. Is that the way it's going to take place? Because if that translation's not good either.
Well, I don't know exactly what's going to happen because we haven't had the vote yet, but I'm worried about this. I've been told that it won't be translated in writing. It'll be in Italian, and those of us that don't handle Italian well will be dependent very much on the translation we hear from the translators, who do a very good job. But as the day goes on, they get tired too, and then sometimes I notice they even skip sentences in order to catch up with what's being read in Italian or whatever. So it is a complex matter, and it's a very long document, so I think it's going to be a difficult thing understanding and then voting. I don't know that we're going to be voting the same day we first hear it. I think we hear it one day, and then people respond, and they try to correct it, and then the next day we actually have the vote. That's how I think it's going to happen.
Okay.
But again, I'm not sure. It's not all that clear.
Okay, well, hopefully we get some clarity as the week goes ahead, and it's our final week. What's at stake here? It's not the Church's doctrine on marriage, because the Pope settled that from the get-go. Marriage, the Church's teaching on that will remain unchanged, but what is at stake?
Well, I worry about that because I think the way we practice our faith influences what we believe. So pastoral practice helps us interpret the faith. So to say that we can change our practice without changing our faith can be true, or maybe it's not true in some circumstances. So I think the faith of the church is at stake always when it comes to Synod making statements about things. And of course, what's really at stake is the salvation of souls and the ability of the church to confidently proclaim to the world around us what we believe. And we need to be really confident and clear about what we're proclaiming in order to do that well. So I think a whole lot is at stake in terms of the life of the church. Now, we're not specifically involved in a reflection on the dogmatic teachings of the church, so we're not looking at that or playing around with it or anything. But I think that practice influences our belief, so it's a very serious matter.
One last question. Something that I see from the outside, again, I'm not on the inside, but there's this idea that after the Synod is over, some of these questions, because we've seen so much diversity at the local level, and I think the Synod body has seen that there are specific problems to specific areas. What if it is left up to individual Episcopal conferences to respond to certain pastoral situations without reference to Rome?
Well, you know, the faith isn't regional, the faith is Catholic, it's universal. So when it comes to matters of faith and morals, I don't think that can be, responsibility for that can't be delegated to regional bishops' conferences or national bishops' conferences. I think in all cases there should be a reference to Rome. Rome doesn't have to control it from the beginning, but you know, the unity that we seek in the voice of St. Peter, you know, represented by Pope Francis, is a word that calls us to unity of faith. That's the role of the Pope, to hold us together. And I think that continues on all the issues, even when some responsibility on those issues is given to regional or national conferences. So I think the role of Rome is very important all along, throughout the whole thing.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for being on the show.
You're welcome.
We have to take a quick break, but stay tuned for more live Synod coverage from Rome. Welcome back to EWTN's coverage of the Synod on the Family, live from Rome. You can hear the church bells chiming behind me, and so it gives me a wonderful opportunity to welcome my next guest. As we mentioned, the small groups are meeting today and tomorrow to discuss what to put in the Instrumentum Laboris to hand over to the Holy Father as part of the final document. And I have the pleasure of welcoming Cardinal Thomas Collins of Toronto, who is the leader of one of those discussion groups. Your Eminence, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thanks for coming across the beautiful piazza this evening to be with us.
So beautiful out there, so beautiful.
It is wonderful to do all this in the backdrop of
Yes,
Michelangelo's dome, isn't
true.
it? But I usually start off, I just ask, because we're all on the outside, you know, we're folks at home and all over the world. Just how's it going in there?
Well, it's very interesting. The last little while we've been in these small groups. And my group, the one I'm in, about 21 bishops, and there are 6 lay people who are sort of auditors, and then there's one theological expert, and so it's a nice mix, people from all over the world. And basically, we're just going, we have 2 different things you do in the Synod. One, you sit in this big hall you've seen the pictures of with the Pope down below, and these big seats with the microphones and things. And that's where we give speeches one after another, 3 minutes, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then the thing goes down, you see ticking down, and then the thing starts flashing.
Do you get fined if you go over?
Oh, I think so, yeah. You get penalties. No. But that's very interesting. It's rather draining because it's a lot of time listening to speeches, but it's very informative. You see different perspectives, and you go through the Instrumentum Laboris, which is kind of the framework for the Synod, just point by point. There are 147 sections to it, so you keep working your way through it. Then you break into small groups of about, the size of about 30 people altogether. And we've been doing that talks and then groups, talks, groups, talks, groups for the 3 sections, so the first, second, third. So now we're on this, we've had the talks for the 3rd section, Now we're on the small groups.
Small groups. We're in the home stretch.
We're in the home
so
stretch.
what else? What's happening this week? Lay it out for us.
Well, I know
what's
next
gonna
week,
go on?
this time next week, I'm heading home.
Right,
This is good.
Lot to do
That's
before
the
you
key
get
thing.
on that
However,
plane back
before
to
I get on the
Toronto.
plane, that's a reward at the end. I can see I see the plane. I got my baggage ready to go.
Got to get back to the flock.
Oh,
I know you
that's
must be
true.
missing them.
Oh, I know. It's the trouble. You get away a lot. But anyway, what we do now, we're going to finish off the small group. So we vote on the. You have two things that we have to vote on. One is a summary of our discussions.
Okay.
And that is the secretary or the relator. In my case, it's Archbishop Chaput is the one.
Right.
Where I'm in English Group D. So when you see English Group D's reports, are cheering. That's the
Yeah,
way.
we have
That's
to
our
cheerlead for that group,
cheer-
y'all.
English Group
English
D.
Group D. Okay.
Yeah, that's our group. So what we do is he has been taking notes, and we have the wonderful assistance of two seminarians who are helping us, and they're doing kind of secretarial work, and they take notes on what's being said during the discussions as we go through section 3 we've been doing. And it's got about 78 sections, 78 parts to it.
And it's all about family life.
About
isn't it?
family
Yeah,
life,
sure.
different issues.
Okay.
The first part was more on seeing the situation. The second part is some principles. The third part is the nitty gritty of what should we do.
Okay,
And some
okay.
very some difficult and controversial issues. So we've been going through it, and then we vote on two things in the small group. First of all, the bishops vote on it. The first of all is the talk, a 10-minute talk that the Archbishop's going to give tomorrow with all the other 13 secretaries or relators
So
in
you
the
vote,
afternoon.
we vote, okay, this is what
This
we would
group.
like you to
And-
say we approve.
Well, what he does,
Okay.
he takes the notes and then he reads it out. And
Okay.
he says, anything I missed, anything I got wrong, anything I didn't represent, or just some point of view I didn't get, and they put it in, he adds it in if it is. And then we say, okay, does this fairly represent our discussion? Yes, no, abstain.
Okay.
So, I mean, last time was unanimously yes.
Okay,
in
great.
each time. So we'll do that tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And then we go through what are called the modi, which is, I guess, the amendments, basically.
Oh, all right.
And so as we're going through, people are thinking, I think that sentence should be changed, that paragraph should be somewhere else. So they think of things, maybe a whole paragraph, maybe a word, whatever, and they send them in, email them in to Archbishop Chaput and his assistant, and they put them together, and tomorrow morning they'll be all printed up, we'll have them in front of us, ordered according to the sections of part 3.
Okay.
And we'll just start going through quickly because we got a lot of them to do.
Right.
And so we just go bang, 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 yes, no, maybe, or yes, no, and
Okay,
abstain.
right.
And they have to get a majority to proceed. So we just go through with that. And then once that's all done, they have to be handed in around noontime, basically.
noon
They gotta
tomorrow.
and the speech has to be handed in, or it has to be done by then, or 12:30 to 1 around that time.
Before Pronzo.
Before Pronzo,
Yeah.
before Pronzo. And then we come back in the afternoon, and the reporters read out their reports.
From all the 13 groups.
From all the 13
okay.
groups.
And then.
Then they now got all the modi are in,
Okay.
all the reports are done and everything, all the speeches are done. So there's this committee of 10 people who have been working with, I think, I'm sure, assistants as well. And they start working on a final statement of some type.
And this will be given to Pope Francis. This is
Well,
the product.
eventually.
Eventually, okay.
This is sort of the product of the whole thing.
Okay.
So they work on that, and then sometime, not sure exactly, but shifting the schedule a bit, sometime I think Thursday or so, Thursday or Friday, they sort of explain what they've come up with as a result of all these amendments, all this stuff. And then we make our further comments. They work on it again on Friday. And then Saturday, they go over it again, the final thing.
Oh, my.
And then Saturday afternoon, we vote paragraph by paragraph. Yes,
A lot
no,
of
or
sleepless
abstain.
nights for everybody,
Yeah.
having to work through the night to get all this
That's
stuff
right.
together.
And then
It's-
that's given to Pope Francis.
And then then he just reflects on that,
Well, he
right?
reflects
yeah,
on it,
and he'll
and
decide.
He'll decide what
Yeah.
he wants to do. I mean, he could do anything. And
Okay.
in the past, they had a sort of a different approach. They would just generate points from the groups, and then he would write a letter about a year later. He might do
Okay.
that. I don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah,
He
John
might-
Paul, last Synod on the family, remember
Yeah.
John Paul wrote
Familiaris
Familiaris
Consortio.
Consortio. But popes don't have to do that, and that's what they've said. They're
no,
not
they can-
obliged to do it.
there are all
And I'm
kinds
sure
of
if
ways
Pope
they can
Francis,
approach it.
okay.
So I don't know what he will do, but we're going to give him the very best advice we can give on
Yeah.
the points that are there.
Now we went just through all the bureaucracy of how this week is going to go because it's a lot of work
Yes,
for
it
you.
is,
But the
yeah.
fruit that's going to come out of this. Now, what are families going to receive as a result of all of the sweat and the sleepless nights that you all have been putting in here?
Well, I think it's a bit difficult to nail it down because this is for the whole universal church.
Sure.
So and we notice even our discussions in the small groups and in the big hall too, that you have people from all the different continents, and so in one place there'd be one issue, another place another issue, and so it's quite mixed up, you know, in terms of mixed all over the world.
Right.
So to look for a specific thing that's going to be a more particular application to our area will probably be difficult to do because it's so different. But we're trying to get, I think what I hope would be at the end of it all, depending on what it will be, would be the guidance on some of the key issues that have been raised. And the voices have been heard from all over. The bishops have brought in many different issues, and they're quite different from place to place.
Because what is common is that family is in crisis worldwide. That's the common thing, but in different ways. And so the pastors have to, I guess.
So I think it varies. There's a great difference between, for example, some parts of the world, there's a problem with the faith that's sort of slipping away. They're not really, they have a great concern about secularism and things of that nature. And the church is sort of shrinking, you know. Whereas other parts of the world, the church is expanding wonderfully. It's vibrant, it's dynamic.
Where would this be, for example?
Well, I think that Asia, Africa, Middle East, some other areas. And I experienced this personally in my own life because I'm the Archbishop of Toronto.
Right.
And Toronto, we always say, every Sunday, Mass in 37 languages. And,
but seriously.
Yeah, we just opened our 5th Chinese parish now open. We've got Korean, we have Vietnamese, we have, and it's a richness of the whole world. I find that exciting. And I mean, the vibrancy that comes into my own diocese in Southern Ontario in Canada as a result of this tremendous vibrancy in the church throughout the world.
I've heard that from some other Synod fathers who say it's just enriching being together, hearing the variety of experiences in places like Toronto where different, nationalities through immigration or whatnot have grown up. I mean, it's enriching.
I get this experience here at the Synod, but I get it when I go back home on
Monday.
I get it at home. Right. It's wonderful. I'm
but
going to be
you can
heading
share
out
that.
there.
You could say, listen,
well,
we're
I have
so
been
multi-ethnic in Toronto.
Telling them that, you know, that really, and it's a great enrichment because, and the kind of a culture we're facing, there's a fair bit of secularism and kind of that kind of stuff, but it's so deadening. And when I travel, I'm always on the road visiting the different parishes, and it's exciting. There's a great evangelical fervor and zeal, which I think is brought to a great degree from the homeland. And my main concern, and I've expressed it to the bishops who come to me from the various homelands, is that the second, third generation may lose that. And that we got to see they don't. But it's a great day. That's where the church is alive.
We're getting sleepy in the West, let's say,
well,
about our faith.
To have a wake-up.
A little wake-up call.
The leadership in the church is there.
Good.
I mean, in terms of the evangelical fire, the fire is burning right there.
Great.
And I am just so grateful in my diocese. I have with different people. The rector of the seminary was born in Bombay. One of my auxiliary bishops is from Vietnam, and that's just a long list for many others.
It's a real model. I think.
And it's exciting.
I wanted to ask the presence of Pope Francis, because we all have Pope Francis, and he's in there some days, but not all days. I think for when you have the big assemblies, he's in there.
He's always there, for the assembly, not for the small groups.
Not for the small groups, but what has his presence done for or even his initiative in calling you all together? I mean, his effect on the Synod.
Well, I think it's always great to have the Pope present there. And I remember I've been to my 3rd Synod. I was 2 with Pope Benedict and 1. This is my first with Pope Francis. And it's very much the same as with Pope Benedict. He simply sits there, he listens attentively, because that's really what the Synod is for, to give him advice. And it's really important that bishops give advice to the Pope. This is one of their duties, especially cardinals, of course, is our very specific thing. As we honestly try to express how we see the church. And these are the pastors of the church. And this is the bishops of the church, So they're speaking of a huge experience. And this is why I find it so exciting. It's just like at the conclave, you see all these cardinals, wow, I mean, they've got a lot of experience there. I'm just a little baby on the thing, but wow. But it's amazing. So I think the Pope gets the benefit of bishops and cardinals honestly, candidly speaking what's there.
We've heard there's a lot of candor. We've heard, like any family, there's going to be, I don't agree, but,
that's what he wants. And
that's what the apostles were. So
that's it, because you have to have that. And I think that's really crucial in the church that all of us, whether it be at the parish, whether it be in the diocese, like when I'm, trying to shepherd the diocese that's been entrusted to me by the Holy Father, I don't want to have a situation. I do want to have a situation where the priests, the lay people, they speak. They say what on their. I can't always reply to them all.
Well, it's better they speak than just stop coming to church, right? If they say,
but you need to. It's very healthy. It's a very healthy thing, and so I think there's been a lot of that.
Okay.
And you know, I mean, people have different views on different topics.
Yeah, well, you have a lot to bring back, won't you? I mean, what an enriching 3 weeks. I think
yes,
this
it's
must have
great.
been. We're not done yet. Like you say,
Oh,
this is,
I know.
We're in the final stretch. This
final
is,
stretch.
you know, where it all comes to head. I'll be interested to see what Pope Francis has to say in his homily on Sunday. Kind of maybe he'll offer his thoughts, you know, on the whole synod process, because he really sees you as brothers.
He will give the first sort of reflection will be on the Sunday Mass, so we end.
Okay.
But then I don't know what he'll do after that. He may do something more too. I don't know. We'll see. He'll let us know.
Eminence, thank you so much for being with us. One of the shepherds talking to us, the flock. We really appreciate it. That's our show for this evening. Remember, for all the latest information on the Synod, visit our special Synod page on EWTN.com and follow us on Twitter at EWTN. Send us your questions and comments using the hashtag EWTNSynod. We've so enjoyed getting them. We are covering this from all angles on EWTN News Nightly, Joan Lewis's blog and radio show, and the world over. For now, I'm Mary Shovelin. Good night from Rome.